Rival Sports Pod, covering the New York sports scene and behind the scenes, including the Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, New York Mets, and everything else in New York sports worth your precious time. And now here's Joe Pastor and Glenn Ferretti.
Another episode of Rival Sports Pod. How you doing today, Glenn?
Oh, I'm doing all right, dude. I'm telling you, I was all prepared Sunday night. I was looking forward to this podcast after the Bills game. I was going to come in guns a-blazing, talking about how much the Bills suck and the Jets are on a roll. And typical Jets fashion, they decided to completely disarm me last night. But I'll still try to do my best. But I definitely lost a few bullets in the holster last night.
Well, that's just the thing about the NFL, and particularly this year when all things seem too good to be true. You think you're going to know what's happened. And all the announcers before the game were going Jets, all the way across. Then,
Yeah, I
things
thought that the
happen.
night before, though, they all went Bengals except for Jason Garrett was the only one that went Bills on the broadcast that I was looking like. So I think that that one person going against them helps it. Whenever it's completely one team, I agree. It seems to never work out. But you got to be kind of surprised. Like the Jets are underdogs in the game, and every person is picking them. I mean, that seems like someone's got to go with the favorite.
Nobody trusts the Chargers.
Yeah.
The Chargers are like a worse version of the Bills that don't play up to their potential always. Is it the coaching? They got a good quarterback too, probably not as good as Josh. Can't do some of the things Josh can for sure, but definitely a very promising young guy. But you never really know what you're going to get out of the Bengals, and I think that's even like multiplied than when you see the Bills. You never know what you're going to get either. You get that first drive of the game where they just soar right down the field, and it's like, oh, okay, the offense is going to be in sync today. Then not so much. You get an interception that didn't really hurt them. They got the ball back, but then the Bills proceeded to run the ball twice. You had third and short. Bengals knew the pass was coming, and they bust through the line and get the sack, and then the offense isn't able to repay the favor and get a score there. At that point, it was 14-7. That would have been a perfect chance for the Bills to change the momentum of the game after getting the stop and getting the score, but didn't work out that way.
No, yeah, it was actually, I know we were texting back and forth about it. And, I think typically you want to blame, like the defense completely. But obviously the Bills defense stepped up in the second half, only allowing 3 points to the Bengals after the hot start they got out to. So clearly they made some nice adjustments to be able to adjust what to Burrow and the Bengals were doing. But, Bills couldn't get anything really going on offense sustainably and put points on the board, and it came back to bite them. I know one of the big things was right before half, not being able to get that field goal on that questionable intentional grounding call.
Or the slide tackle that was not called. Like somehow that's not tripping, but that is intentional grounding. And the biggest Bills hater of them all, Chris Collinsworth, was standing up for the Bills. And because you get these NFL former official commentators on there to explain the rules and try to back up their boys, which I get. But then, Collinsworth, I thought, did a good job pushing back to say, I don't really think that's grounding. And then he explained why, because of, the pattern, that it's certainly not in the spirit, of the rule. But the bigger thing to me is, how did they not call that a tripping? Like, that's 15 yards. That's a big call.
Yeah.
There was the phantom roughing the passer called on the Bills. Certainly not going to blame it on the officials. The Bills had their opportunities, right? Like they were driving down beginning of the fourth quarter. I'm not mad at Dalton Kincaid. Everyone's allowed to make a mistake, especially a rookie. I mean, he was flipped up in the air when he had the ball punched out. But, they had their opportunity. You score there, who knows what happens.
Yeah, it seems like the Bills tight ends like to cough up the football, so hopefully he's not joining Dawson Knox in that category.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem in college, so we could maybe breathe easy.
Yeah, no, he's obviously showing some promise. I mean, you'd like him obviously to, be able to just kind of get tackled normally and not be in that vulnerable spot, because things like that happened. Kind of the same thing happened to Garrett Wilson, where he broke a tackle, and then wound up kind of putting himself in like this side winding tackle where they were able to knock the ball out. So, Knox kind of, I know the guy went low, which is a great way to tackle a guy of that size. But yeah, you could see him on his next catch. He was really protecting the football.
And
And
I
I
like
think
that Allen went right back to him when they got the
yeah,
ball. I thought that was
yeah, even though
important.
it looked like he was injured. I was surprised, like he
Yeah.
threw it right to him right after it looked like he could barely walk to the line on the next play. But I think the thing that really stinks, and it's probably across like all the games, is just like the officiating just seems to be just so poor in all the games. Like I'm almost getting to the point where just like I'm so sick of just like complaining about the refs like
Mhm.
helping us or hurting us, because I feel like throughout the course of the season, like I could look back to other games where we got some calls in our favor and it helped us, and certain games that it didn't. Obviously, we point to the Kansas City game, big time for the Jets. But man, the refs are just awful
Yeah. You guys
all
finally
around.
got you guys finally got a roughing the passer call in your favor. But yeah, the one thing I
Yeah, and
wonder,
fumbled
like,
on the next play.
yeah, yeah, but is it just that hard of a job? Because you remember when they brought in the replacements, I don't know, this was years ago, and then you had the Denver game, the No Mary, when they threw the Hail Mary up. I think they were playing Seattle. It was both players caught the ball on dual
Yeah,
possession. It goes to
Green
the
Bay. Yeah,
offense, but the officials botched it and they gave the ball to Seattle and cost the Packers the game. And then they were able to settle the contract dispute. So, like, is it just that hard of a job?
yeah, I think it is. The
Because
game moves extremely fast, right?
yeah,
It is a tough job. I mean, in no way do I want to see like penalties reviewed, because that just gets insane. The games get to be
hmm
long enough as it is, and like I said, throughout the course of the game, there's so many missed calls and calls that happen. You only remember the ones when it goes against you. You never remember the ones when they're in your favor. So
yeah,
it's hard to say, but it does kind of stink, because it definitely. I'm more in favor of them like just eating the flag more than calling the penalties. I mean, you could
mhm.
see some games there's like 10 hold penalties like in the game, and some there's none. Like the games aren't that different that there should be such a drastic difference in number of penalties called.
Yeah, yeah. Or when a lot of times when they're circling, I guess what I was told was I'll throw a flag if I thought there was holding, and then I'll call you over and I'll be like, "Did you see a hold?" And if you're like, "Yeah, I'm not sure," then if I'm not sure and you're not sure, it's not a hold.
Yep.
Um, the other thing about the officials too is we also forget, like when they show a replay and like the official gets the bang bang call right in real
Right.
time when it's like so hard to tell. So there is that. That's why it's like the weird thing is they botch these calls that seem so obvious sometimes, but then sometimes make these really hard ones.
I know. Yeah, there was a bunch of calls in the Jets game too, where Troy Aikman was talking about wanting like more calls and more penalties. I'm like, all right, like the game's already like slow enough with some of the calls, and we don't really need to be like searching them out and talking about them like the entire game. I feel like they spent an entire quarter talking about penalties. Of like, all right, over to the Manning cast.
Yeah, yeah. Let's play the game.
Yeah,
But about penalties and challenges, it's another thing too, where like I was pretty hard on Dorsey, and I still do think he's part of the problem. But to what extent, I wonder, is Dorsey McDermott's puppet, right? Like, is this really what Ken Dorsey wants to do, or is he doing what McDermott is telling him he has to do? And with how bad the offense is looking, like, I would think if McDermott didn't like what was going on, he'd be like, yo, you got to do this differently. So, like, I wonder to what extent this is McDermott. And it's just been a lot of things where just like, I guess I've been like Dorsey, 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 and I've been more like McDermott's the problem this week. Um, the challenge, they
yeah,
challenged a 9-yard gain on first
yeah,
down. It's not
yeah,
like it was third down and it was going to bring up fourth down or something. It was on first down. You wasted a
yeah.
challenge. And he does that all the time he wastes challenges. He calls these timeouts on defense, which it's only, I only could ever remember it working once.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I saw that, and it was definitely not clear that he caught the ball. So it was kind of
no.
it was certainly a wasted challenge at that point of the game. But I did feel like they kind of, let Josh play the way he likes to play. Obviously, he had the early rushing touchdown with the
hmm
stupid penalty. on his way in there. But I don't know. I think what I've been kind of seeing out of Allen is, even though he has obviously he's been putting up all the numbers, but it seems like when they're not doing well, like he's really dejected looking on the sidelines and, really seems like out of it, of just being like really pissed off. So I don't know if like his emotions of just like getting too caught up in like every drive not being successful. Maybe he's just so used to just scoring at will that these games to where it's like tough and you got to really grind out drives and score points and put points on the board is like then he starts to try to, do too much and do things. But I don't know. He hasn't been able to beat the good teams recently. So I will see what happens, but the team, they kept them in the game. Like you
So
probably said, if you get 24 points, like you're going to be,
I would have been
you know,
happy.
yeah, you would have been in there. I mean,
So
really, I know they scored the late touchdown, but they
Mhm.
were, they were out of it.
So a little more to your point on Josh. I was talking to someone else about this, about how he looks on the sidelines now. He's not all fired up and,
Yeah,
um that could be it, what you said, that he's, just frustrated and dejected. But maybe he's also frustrated with the play calling and being told that no, you can't run, no, you have to slide, protect the football, don't turn it over.
yeah,
And then he's like, well, what do you want me to do? The other guy I was talking to said he's always mad that Diggs yells at him, but I think Diggs has been the model citizen, certainly this year. I don't think he wants that kind of reputation. But like the Bills, I think are best. Like to go back to um, the Bills being a Super Bowl team, the only way I see the Bills winning a Super Bowl is Josh running around, slinging the ball around. Yeah, there might be a game where he has 2 or 3 interceptions, but you take that
yeah.
because that's the way you also get 30 points. Because I tell you how you're not going to win the Super Bowl is scoring 18 points.
No.
Um,
Yeah, no, yeah, no. I agree completely. The Bills are probably actually really good value for a Super Bowl bet right now
mhm,
with the slide that they're on because when you look at the AFC and Kansas City and Miami, like there's nobody that's a guarantee to come out of that division right now.
mhm.
But on Allen, it's like he almost needs that, and I hate like quoting the Coach K, but like that next play mentality of just like whatever just happened doesn't really matter. It's already over. Like we got to move on and let things bother you because obviously the mental game is just as
Well,
important as the physical game.
Well, is that what he's doing now? I mean, it's so hard to read into people's body language and stuff, but is that what he's doing? Is he trying to not get too high or too low? But we hear all this talk about Super Bowl, and actually, we had a couple of questions from our listeners. One question was they wanted to know my thoughts on the Bills Super Bowl window. That question came from Jim in Connecticut, and actually, I said I'm going to leave that one to Santa. So Santa has a gift here for the Buffalo Bills.
Thank God it's almost Christmas. This will be relevant soon.
It's WD-40. I guess the Bills Super Bowl window might be open, but it might need a little help to stay there. With the WD-40. It's great stuff. WD-40.
Yeah, I would say the window is certainly I don't know about
Did you,
cemented shut, but it's got some good hard Elmer's
yeah.
wood glue on it for sure right now.
Did you know you're supposed to like go out to your garage and WD-40 your springs on your garage door, and you should do it when you twice a year. And a good time to do that is when you set the clocks back and when you set the clocks forward. But
Yeah,
you might
that's
want to put
when's
some
that ending? I thought that
put
was ending like 4 years ago.
I know, isn't that the dumbest thing? But you want to put
Yeah.
some newspaper down underneath because it will drip, but that will extend the life on your garage door. So
Could you
all
go
sorts of
out
knowledge here on the show for you
Yeah,
guys.
could you go out there with a nice rag and maybe wipe it up before it drips? But I don't see you as much of a handyman, so I could see you letting it drip on those newspapers.
Yeah. I don't want to. You don't want to wipe it out because if you wipe it up too, let's say you go up there and you spray it and you wipe it, you're probably also wiping away some that would have stayed on there. So I think by letting it drip, you're keeping the optimal amount of WD-40 on your springs.
There you go. Yeah, you might have a future in home repair.
Yeah, I've learned a few things.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of keeping the window open, needing a little help, who are the teams in our way, right? In the Bills' way. So you got Cleveland and you got the Steelers. How the Steelers are a playoff team right now is beyond me. Like,
Yeah,
if I think Ken Dorsey's a bad OC, if you think Hackett is a bad OC,
we
I
do.
mean, look at Pittsburgh. Like, what they do with Pickens is criminal. When you
Yep.
watch that team, because I've watched a couple of their games the past couple of weeks, bigger chunks than I'd care to. It's like, how is this team winning games? But to their credit, they find a way to win. But they got a pretty tough schedule. I could see them ending with 3 losses in a row. They got Cincinnati at home, then at Seattle, at Baltimore.
Yeah.
And then they have 3 hard games coming up as well. They have, well, I don't know about 3. They have Packers, but then Browns and the Bengals. So if they lose 5 of those games, they're going to drop down to 9-8.
And they're out.
They're out. We got the Browns. Browns are sitting at 5-3. They got Baltimore. That should be a loss. They got Jacksonville. That should be a loss. They got Cincinnati. That should be a loss. That's going to bring them to 6 losses. So then you're going to need them to either lose to either Pittsburgh, the Rams, Houston, or the Jets. So I could see them finishing 10-7. Maybe they stay ahead of the Bills, but then the Bills would sneak into that last spot. The other scenario is Miami Dolphins, right? They're 6-3, but I believe you use the term fraud to describe the Miami Dolphins. So they do have a lot of those winnable games, but they got 2 games against the Jets. Maybe I think the Jets might be able to squeak out one. Am I being a little optimistic here?
No, I think you're right. I love it how the Jets aren't even in your scenario. That's the best part. But yeah, I heard an interesting stat about the Dolphins. It's like they're averaging, I think, like 16 points or something against the teams that they lost to would be considered probably like the only competitive teams that they've played so far.
Mm-hmm.
So that vaunted offense they have does not work very well when they have a quality competitor. I think winning opponents they were playing.
So that would bring them to 4 losses. And then they wrap up the season, Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
So if
they got a tough go.
That would be 10-7. Tie. We'd have the tiebreaker because we beat them twice.
So where do you have the Bills? Like what do you have the Bills finishing?
I think the Bills are 10-7. And I think they either win the division or are the last team in on the wild card. Because I think the Browns have a better conference schedule. The Browns are 3-2 in the conference. So I think if the Browns and Bills both finish 10-7, the Browns would be the 6th seed and the Bills would be the 7th.
So Jets-Bills game could be enormous then for the Bills.
That could.
I mean, so the Jets have 4 wins now. We play the Raiders next week.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you put that? Win?
It should be a win for the Jets, but the Raiders just switched coaches, switched quarterbacks. I think a formula to have a small period of success where the team is pumped up is when you change coach and quarterback. I would have preferred the Jets to be the first team the Raiders played after doing that. But I do think the Jets are probably the better team for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the Jeff Saturday rule. Like, I think the Raiders win one game. I agree. I'm glad we're not playing them in the first game. And I think they go back to reality next week. So then we got the Bills and Dolphins, even if you consider both of those losses. Then we go Atlanta, should be a 6th win.
Yeah.
Houston, we'll see.
Tough.
But yeah, tough, but could be a win. So that could be 7. Miami.
Say you split.
Say we split. That's 8. Washington could be a win. 9. Browns, we'll say loss at Cleveland, and then finish with New England. Like the Jets could be 10-7 as well.
They could win 10 games, yeah.
So even just say they lose that game also to Houston. That game against the Bills is enormous. Like if they beat the Bills twice, that's like an extra win. That's like the Bills needing to get to 11 wins.
Yeah. Do you know what the Jets might need to win 10 games?
I can't imagine. A new quarterback?
Gift from Santa.
There we go.
This one's for Zach Wilson. They're blocks, but these are children's toys. I thought Zach Wilson liked old ladies. Why would he need a block? I get it, because his offensive line can't block for him.
Yeah,
So
we see that.
yeah,
We saw that with 8 sacks last night.
yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was brutal.
It's a timeless toy, the blocks.
It is a timeless toy. I'm not a big block guy lately, but
Yeah, no, but like if you got a little kid, there's a lot worse toys you could end up playing with a child than blocks, right?
yeah,
You could build something. You could tell the kids crazy scale by how much they like to like knock it down. Like, do they build something and do they want to like maybe get some other little type of dinosaurs or other things and play with the structure, or does the little kid just go psycho and freaking smash that junk down right away? It's a good indicator, I think, of their temperament.
probably if they'll be a good football player or not.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of, we have the benefit of an easier schedule. The Bills have a tougher schedule. But yeah, it looks like a lot of teams that could be finishing right around that same number,
That 10,
potentially with some interesting tiebreakers coming into play. So yeah, we'll see what happens up in Buffalo. But yeah, obviously it's crucial that we get the win against Vegas this week.
Yeah. The only reason I'm down on the Jets is because of the lack of scoring and just how it just seemed that, like, just watching the game, that like Zach Wilson didn't have a chance. I know he was inaccurate at times and stuff like that. I don't think Garrett Wilson looked as good as might have been the worst I've ever seen Garrett Wilson. I don't watch him as much as you do, but might be the worst I've ever seen Garrett Wilson play. But just like the way that line blocks for him, and they had like they weren't. It didn't seem like they went that deep in their
80
backups.
yards, 7 catches, 80 yards. Not a bad worst game.
What did he have? The fumble? I don't know. He just didn't. He just
Yeah,
didn't look.
no, I agree. I thought he had a bad penalty, and he had a
yeah.
bad, and the fumble was the killer. But yeah, he had 10 targets, 7 catches, 80 yards. But no, I agree.
I just didn't think he looked as good, and in a way, it's a compliment because I don't think he's looked as good and elite as or in potential to be elite as I've seen from him.
Yeah, it's impossible because we're running into the same exact scenario of just horrendous coverage and second receivers to get them the ball and get open. Everything that Diggs and Garrett Wilson are getting is all on their own skill level. Alan Lazard continues to drop pass after pass, commit stupid penalty after stupid penalty. And Gabe Davis, like 0 catches for 0 yards.
Well, Shakir is even replacing him as the number 2 wide receiver. Like the number 2 target is certainly developed into be Dalton Kincaid, right? It's Diggs, Kincaid, and then it seems like Shakir is the next option.
Right, but when you could single cover Gabe Davis all day and he doesn't have a catch for the game, that's certainly a problem, which we're dealing with as well. And that's why I think the Bills are kind of making that adjustment a little earlier than the Jets, where they're getting Shakir more involved. And we're kind of clamoring to get Xavier Gibson in the game over Lazard to get him more touches as well. I mean, there were so many plays last night where he's running in motion or he's going behind the quarterback. And you think at one point they're going to like fake the handoff and like hit him in a swing pass, and he just doesn't get it. He made a couple nice catches in the game, actually tough catches to make, but we got a couple rookies sitting there collecting dust, and Alan Lazard is just a complete bust right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that down in my notes too. I wrote this down. Lazard is terrible. That's what I wrote down. Oh, the other thing I wrote down about the Jets: 3 tight end set in the red zone? ?
Well, also, and coming off of just a complete no huddle all the way down to the 13-yard line, and then they decide to go under center for the last 13 yards and go backwards like 20 yards. So it's crazy. Just the offensive play calling and just the decision making is horrendous. Yeah, the fact that Lazard is starting, the fact that what's his name, CJ Uzama is starting over Conklin is crazy. The Jets, I mean, I just feel like they're literally the definition of insanity, dude. They just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, and you need to make some changes. That's fine. You don't want to change the quarterback, whatever. At this point, like, do we really think Trevor Siemian is going to be an answer compared to Zach Wilson? Probably not. But, like, it doesn't mean you can't make other changes within personnel to send a message and make some adjustments.
I'd say last year watching the Jets, I would have said a lot of it was Zach Wilson's fault. I don't feel that like it's all his fault when I watch it.
Yeah, last night was pretty bad. I love it
Yeah.
how Robert Saleh described it as not his worst game. I was like, he said not even close to his worst game. I was like, geez, that's such a bad comment for your
Yeah, yeah.
quarterback. But I'm like, yeah, he fumbled multiple times in the game, key spots when the offense couldn't even move the ball. I mean, Herbert did nothing last night. I mean,
Yeah.
he couldn't complete a pass, and we were down 14-0. Obviously, the punt return was big, but then turning the ball over on the 50-yard line gave him a short field to be able to go in. Terrible penalty on that play to extend the drive as well. But yeah, they're just continue to just make the same mistakes, stupid penalties, 2 receiver penalties, 1 holding on a 20-yard play, Lazard on another long play with a block in the back. Or no, I think it was reversed. Garrett Wilson had the block in the back, Lazard had the holding. And we're just drive killers. Like, we just continue to kill ourselves.
Yeah. And when you have a young quarterback who doesn't have any time and struggling also in his own right, what are you going to do? I can't stop
No.
fiddling with these blocks.
Yeah. Maybe you found yourself a new toy. But I think anyone that would have looked at the stat line regarding the score and saw Herbert was 16 of 30, 53%, 136 yards, no touchdowns, was sacked 5 times. And Zach Wilson was 33 of 49. We decided to drop back 49 times. I mean, I know the game was over and, a lot of those, but we were definitely really pass heavy. For 263, was sacked 8 times in the game. That's certainly a problem. I mean, we couldn't get the run game going. Brees Hall, 16 carries for 50 yards. So just all around, like, the offense just continues to sputter. The defense continues to shine. At some point, they just, mailed it in last night and on the last drive. Obviously, the last one he fumbled in our own end as well. But those guys have got to be spent, dude. They're just always on the field, game after game, making plays. Herbert winds up with those stats. You shouldn't be losing 27-6.
No. Well, it
But
just seemed that like even like Eckler, they did a pretty good job bottling up Eckler, but like when he needed a run, he was able to get a touchdown.
yeah, he's 14 for 47.
Yeah. But
yeah,
he scored. What, he scored twice, right?
Yeah, they didn't really have the ball a lot. Like, you wouldn't think they had 27 points. Like, we pretty much kept turning it over and making stupid mistakes. And I know Salah, like, he acts like it's like a 1-game thing, but it's like this is really a 2-year thing with the offense. The defense continues to be amazing, and the offense sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Who doesn't suck now is Joe Burrow.
No, he doesn't. Not at all.
I can't stand him. Like,
yeah, I mean, I know because you're a Bills fan, but like, I don't know. How do you cannot stand that guy?
Because his face. And he just seems like he seems just like a cocky prick, like the cocky prick quarterback in high school, not like a bully type, but just would walk around all arrogant, like they're better than everyone else. Like you want to hit them in the face with a shovel. Like you'd love to have like a rake out in the yard, how like, you step on the rake and then the handle flies up and hits you in the face. Like he wants to go for it and he's like shaking his head like a moron.
It's so funny. I have like a complete opposite take
I just
on
don't
the
like
guy.
his
It's
face.
crazy.
Well, and I try not to dislike people. Like I don't mind Mahomes. So it's not because I'm a Bills fan. Like by that logic, I would hate Mahomes too. I don't. There's just something about Joe Burrow that just reminds me of just like every arrogant prick I've ever came across in my life.
It's funny. I was watching a press conference with Burrow the other day, and I had like the complete opposite. I actually told someone about it, was because he was asked a question about Bengals getting off to slow starts. Obviously, it was prior to the Bills game, and every time he was trying to like answer the question, the media member was like jumping in and like interrupting him, and then like after the third time, he was like, "My man," he's like, "I'm just being honest with you. Like, I think your question's very fair." He's like, "I'm trying to answer the question for you. I'm trying to give you a thoughtful answer, and you're just not giving me an opportunity to answer the question." He's like, "If you want to continue," he's like, "I'll wait, and then I'll answer the question for you after." So I kind of left it was like, I love the guy. I was like, he's like, what a respectful answer. Like, wasn't a dick about it. I mean, he's obviously got the swag, so I'm sure he's he seems like a cool dude, which could come off as arrogant, but I don't know. His play certainly elevates as the season goes on. Obviously, he was dealing with the calf injury earlier. I think even during the Bills game, they were kind of messing with his calf to make sure that he was okay. His finger got, bloodied up. I love that he was just like licking the blood off. Like that was like incredible. He wasn't even using the towel to do it. But
that looked painful, not for nothing.
It definitely did. I mean, I just think, and I know obviously you guys have those same feelings about Allen being a gamer. But, and Burrow hasn't won a Super Bowl yet either. He's gotten there, but hasn't won it yet. But man, this guy plays big in big games. And, they get better. They get better as the year goes on. That would be my, kind of 2 Super Bowl picks over even Kansas City would be either the Bengals or the Bills. I think it's a good time to lay some action on either one of them just to see. Not that I think the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. I just think there's good value on them right now.
The odds. Yeah, I get it. No, Burrow's a great player. There's disappointment when you lose, but there's no shame, I think, in losing to the Bengals by 1 score.
One score. That's questionable, but yeah.
It was 1 score.
Yeah, it was. I know, but the way it played out. But yeah, they were 2 scores behind the majority of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get too hung up on that last, making it close and making it look respectable. Like I think the game felt like the Bengals were in control the majority of the game, and the Bills were going to have to do something special to come back and score 14 points to tie that game.
I'll say that you felt, I think, fourth quarter, maybe sometime in the third quarter, that the Bills had a chance. Like the first, obviously the beginning was terrified when they got 2 quick touchdowns. But then once the defense started stopping them, you thought we have a chance. We just got to start playing.
It was 24-10 with 8 minutes left in the game. So.
Well, yeah, but you got to keep in mind at the beginning of the fourth quarter is when you had the Kincaid fumble when they were driving. You got to keep in mind too, when you're watching that game, you were like, "Oh, Cincinnati's first touchdown came because they got gifted a first down by the bad roughing the passer call." Bills lost points when the leg whip wasn't called. So, like, if you're a Bills fan and you're watching that, you're like, "Yeah, we're losing, but we still got a shot."
Yeah. See, I don't know. I just, from like a non-Bills fan, I didn't feel like once it got to like 21-10 and then whatever happened, I understand Kincaid fumbled, they were driving. But once that change happened and the Bengals went down and kicked that other field goal with like 8 minutes, I was like, the Bills are going to need something special here to come back and score 2 touchdowns. Just the way they were playing. Like,
and then they got it. And then they got it with that nice touchdown to Diggs.
Yep. Yeah, that was there was 3 minutes left in the game, and then the Bengals went right for the Bills' throat on the next play, and
correct, and then
put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. And then we had the missed tackle there.
Yeah, and Mixon on the outside.
Yeah,
by Von Miller.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
and that's the thing too. It's like, been like, where's Von Miller been? You're starting to see a little more. Like, I feel that like a week or 2 ago, he wouldn't have even been in the position to make that tackle.
Right.
A healthy Von Miller, I think, makes that tackle, and that's why you signed him. And I think that's the big thing about the Bills' defense too, is they've been playing admirably and keeping them in games. But what's missing from the Bills' defense, with Matt Milano out in particular, is that they're not going to win the game for you. With Milano and these other guys in there, they have a chance to win the game for you. I like the guys they brought in. Like Joseph had that great play on the quarterback sneak where he just threw the center out of the way and stuffed Burrow. So, these reinforcements might help, and maybe the reinforcements are, represented in our WD-40 there.
I don't think they really got much pressure, and that's kind of what Von Miller's for. I mean, Burrow dropped back 44 times.
Mhm.
They sacked him once in the game. So
Well, exactly. That's the thing is we're not getting the pressure on the guys without Daquan Jones. I wonder if we can get like sponsorships. Like, we'll sponsor your product, we'll include it in there, and it will be a gift for Santa for the holidays. That
just
would
got to
be
get a
that.
few more listeners.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're at 115 or so subscribers. So if you're enjoying the show, smash that subscribe button.
Yep.
Right
And if
now.
it's stuck, Joe's got the
Yeah.
WD-40 to help you.
I mean, if you're still listening half hour in, why aren't you smashing the subscribe
Right.
if you haven't already?
But yeah, so the way it went down, I was riding high. Dolphins Bills lost completely.
Yeah.
At a 10 level. But I mean, most Jets fans would think like this is the game that we completely lay an egg and don't show up and don't take advantage of our opportunities. And that's exactly what wound up happening. So I would say not completely surprised, but was optimistic going into the game. I didn't see us getting
Yeah.
blown out. If anything, I saw us losing a close game.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think anyone saw that coming. Both teams have winnable games coming up. You brought up the Raiders. The Bills have the Broncos. At home.
Coming off
So
a big
Monday
win
night.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like both teams are coming off a big win. I mean, I know Sal used the term of we've embarrassed all the best quarterbacks. I mean, we really have. So now with Aiden O'Connell being the next one up, it'll be interesting. I think obviously the Raiders will probably be very run heavy with Jacobs, trying to get him a lot of touches in the game. That's where we're most susceptible, especially with losing Al Woods, that big run stuffer there. But I don't see Aiden O'Connell lighting up the Jets secondary with some of these elite quarterbacks struggling to even do the same.
No, I do not. I mean, he probably would be running for his life with Max Crosby coming after him, but other
Oh
than
yeah,
that,
yeah, Wilson will be for sure.
yeah, yeah. And the Bills having Denver, yeah, they're the Broncos. What everybody remembers is 70 points that Miami threw up on them, but it's still Russell Wilson. He still has weapons, and it's still the NFL. So, a game the Bills should win, but got to go out there and make plays.
That was pretty incredible to see them, beat the Chiefs and win that game. And now it kind of changes things. Like you said, it's a long season. Teams change. Teams get better. Obviously they got Peyton as the new coach who's completely struggled up to this point. But sometimes there's these turning point games in there that really change things. So I don't know. We got our hands full. Hopefully they can both come out with W's and go into that game the following week off of 2 victories. We'll see we'll see what happens. Russell Wilson. I think that was pretty funny. They were playing the Taylor Swift song "Shake It Off" after the game when they beat the Chiefs. They had that queued up and ready to go. That Denver fan base.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, it's exciting stuff, man. I'm happy. Happy we got some winnable games. I'll say that because we did not look good at all. Either did you.
No, well, we didn't score more than 6 though.
Yeah, all counts the same in the record book.
It does.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last thing I would say, let's his thoughts on, like, I know you talked about McDermott, but really, there's a lot of the fan base calling for his head. I mean, what's the fireable offense? I don't think there's any midseason changes coming with the team, but I mean, if they're not a playoff team, is it 100% he's fired?
No, I think the out that why management might not fire McDermott is the injuries on defense, even though the defense isn't the problem. You could end up with a situation where, there's these injuries on defense. Let's just replace the OC, which is terrible. I think if one goes, they might as well both go because I think the OCs also, the more and more time goes by, the more and more I thought about it this week, the more and more Dorsey is a reflection of McDermott and what he wants. So that they either both go or you might as well not fire either of them.
I mean, I think if they don't make the playoffs, there's 100% chance Dorsey's gone.
Yeah.
For sure. And possibly McDermott as well. I mean, they have to do something at that
Mhm.
point. I mean, if they go from 13 seconds away from Super Bowl to not even making the playoffs with essentially a similar roster, something's really wrong internally.
Yeah. I wonder if you would need like a bunch of like turmoil on the team, like Diggs to lose his mind, then like Josh to go after him, and
Oh,
just
he will.
have everything just like blow up on the sidelines, other people getting into it, just
If you don't think there's Diggs drama coming, if this team doesn't make the playoffs, you're insane.
So but maybe you need because right, like 'cause the big thing about McDermott is you always this discipline and this culture and blah blah blah. Well, what if that goes out the window if things go bad? Is that enough to get him out of town? Because, yeah, I've wanted him gone, and not because I dislike him. I appreciate what he did with the organization. He turned us from a joke to Super Bowl favorites, right?
Yeah.
He broke the drought with Tyrod Taylor, not with Josh Allen. So,
Yep.
like, I'll always be grateful for what he did, but he's whatever Marty Schottenheimer or whoever, where I don't know if he could get us to that next level. And every year we spend with McDermott, that's a year wasted with Diggs. How we're going to have Allen for a while. How long do we have Diggs? How long do we have Diggs playing at that level? There's no
Yep.
guarantee when we bring in a replacement that they're going to be anywhere near as good as Stephon Diggs is.
Well, and you can't continue to show regression. I mean, that's a big thing. Is that's what they don't like. I mean, it's one thing if you're a playoff team every year and you're just not getting over the hump. Typically, those coaches don't get fired. Very rarely do they get fired. It has happened, but I mean, if you go to a team where now you're just an average, just barely above 500 team, that's a different
Yeah.
conversation. And I don't know if
Yeah,
your strength is offense and your two weakest skill sets are offensive coordinator and a defensive minded head coach,
Mhm.
that's a huge problem.
It is, and I think that might be one reason why it seems like what the Bills try to do offensively, play this ball control, is not supported by their personnel. It was like what I
Yeah.
said before. They have a personnel to sling the ball around the field. They do
Yeah.
not have the personnel to play ball control. You just
Yeah,
don't.
which they did. I mean, they pretty much did in the Bengals. I mean, Josh had 38
At
passes.
the
I mean,
end,
yeah, well, they had to, but he also
but
led the team in rushing with 8 carries for
yeah,
the game. They only
yeah.
ran the ball 8 times with
Well,
running
I know.
backs.
Well, that's because I think on the first couple of drives they had 4 carries that got stuffed. One was when
Yeah.
they ran it twice in a row because again, McDermott probably got cautious. Uh-oh, Josh threw an interception. I better run the ball a couple times so we don't put too much pressure on the defense. And then how
Yeah.
did that work out?
Yeah, but that's game planning, that's play calling, that's finding different ways, because then when you're in the situation where it's like, all right, we're panicking, it's all Josh, you have to do it or we have no shot. That sometimes is a recipe for disaster as well.
Just like one of the things that like it's a different sport, but going back to like the Jeff Van Gundy Knicks teams of the early 2000s, that's what made me really respect and coaches who get the most out of their talent, right? Those Nick teams, for those who aren't familiar, they were all over the hill people, right? You had aging Ewing and Larry Johnson. Your point guard was a football player, basically Charlie Ward. Allen Houston, who was average. But they went to the finals. They were very good because of the coaching, because he knew how to put his players in positions to be successful and win games. And it just seems like that's something that McDermott doesn't know how to do.
Yeah, that's the best coaches in any sport at any level is they utilize their talent to the best of the ability to
Mhm.
help the team, dude. And if you get stuck in your ways and stuck in a certain way, then there's usually not success.
Mhm.
That like you said, like there's changes that need to be made potentially at, receiver, get other people involved. Like you have to make the adjustments.
Mhm. And again,
Yeah,
I
that,
almost feel like the personnel is there, even if Gabe Davis is a little lacking. I still think we have a good enough offense that we should be scoring into the 20s or into the lower 30s regularly.
yeah, you have to coach to the strengths of the organization and not coaching
Yeah.
to like one specific player. It
Yeah.
definitely does a detriment to the whole
Yeah.
team involved.
And like you drafted Cook to be explosive, but anytime they get him the ball is not a designed wheel route or something of that nature. It's a check down where he's standing still, he's not in space and moving. You want to get a player like that the ball with a little bit of steam. You want to get it to him in space. They can't seem to do that. They can't seem to do it with Hardy. The only attempt to Hardy was a bomb when he was double covered, which wasn't a bad call to throw deep to get them to respect the deep call. But like that's the only time you try to get the ball to one of the guys you brought in to be a dynamic player. It just speaks more to that fact that they don't know how to use the personnel they have.
Yeah, and if you have dynamic players, like you can't give them the ball 6 times. Like I commended the Jets, really. I mean, they gave Brees Hall 17 carries in the game, and typically he'll break 1 or 2 runs. He just wasn't able to. The Chargers did a good job of bottling him up, but you can't expect it. That's Dalvin Cook's biggest complaint, which I'm not lobbying for more carries for that guy, but he was like, I get better as the game goes on. The more touches I get, the defense gets more tired and he gets stronger. And that's kind of the thing is like you expect big plays out of, Cook on your team. It's like, well, it's probably hard when he's touching the ball 5-6 times a game. You got to find creativity and get him more involved.
Yeah, you
could. I think he actually had a good amount. He had a decent game catching the ball. Well, he had 4 catches in the game.
For how many yards?
20 yards. Yeah, not exactly. Not a big game, but I'm saying like that's the thing is you try to feed these guys that are your playmakers.
But they're not designed. They weren't designed when they throw the ball to Cook. It's a little check where he's going to get a couple of yards.
Yeah,
like it's whatever.
Yeah,
and you could say, oh, that's like a run play. Okay, fine, but I want to see him have a chance to break one.
Yeah, it's the same thing the Jets were doing. Like the week before, we had a nice design screen play out for Brees Hall, which he broke for a touchdown, and everything else was like a complete check down last night. It wasn't anything where he could get himself in space. He actually had one screen over the middle that Wilson threw it right at his feet, and he was pissed off that he didn't throw him the ball. But yeah, you got to get your playmakers the ball in creative situations. So. All right, well, off to week 10, and we're both probably in situations we didn't think we were going to be in right now, and we'll kind of see what the second half of the year brings and how this goes. So I look forward to catching up next week because we have 2 night games again: Sunday night Jets, Monday night Bills.
Yes, we have one more question from a listener. This one was from Sean in Greece, and he said he must be a Colts fan. He said Andrew Luck is eligible for the Hall of Fame this year. Do you think he's got a shot? So only 86 games played, 23,000 passing yards, 171 TDs, 4-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Fantastic player, obviously, but it's too short of a career. It's almost the Jacob deGrom scenario from baseball. Is didn't stick around long enough to probably stamp his name in it, but if he would have,
and no championship. It's not like you bring up Jacob deGrom, like a Sandy Koufax didn't play very long either, but he won a World Series.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think Andrew Luck's going to be considered, but not somebody that'll make the Hall of Fame. I would be very surprised if he did.
Yeah, it's not like it's the Baseball Hall of Fame where anybody could get in now.
It's probably the obvious answer. It's kind of sad, if you go by, his body of work when he was playing, the guy was exceptional. I think he's still young enough to play. Maybe we should call him.
Yeah. Let's see. Does it have his age here?
Yeah.
Born in 1989.
Yeah.
He's under 30, right? Oh, no, he's 34.
Yeah, run him out there.
34.
Yeah, run him out there.
Yeah.
They actually asked Cam Newton, I think, what it would take to bring him out of retirement, how much money. I'm sure it's some crazy amount. He actually had a funny story on his podcast talking about Jimmy Clausen when he went there, and they're like, well, how'd you decide on like number 1? They thought it was like an arrogant thing that he wanted to be 1 and not 2. And he was like, no, he's like, I went to Jimmy Clausen, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I'll sell you the number. And he was like, all right, well, what do you think? And he was like, $1 million. And he was like, $1 million. He's like, most people don't make $1 million like in their entire life. And he was like, yeah, forget it. And then he said, well, all right. And he goes, Jimmy called me back and he said, hey, I just want to let you know I talked to my agent and my management group, and we decided we go down to 750. And he's like, my next call
That's
was
even better.
oh yeah, he goes, my next call was to the equipment manager, and said, give me number 1. He said, because number 2 is never going to play another game in Carolina again. It was unbelievable, dude.
That's the best part. Like, you would think the callback would be like, all right, my bad, dude. You could have it for $100,000, which may even be a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're typically like 50, $100,000,
Yeah.
like something to like buy like a nice car or something like that. Like it's insane. He offered $1 million. Maybe he was foreshadowing that he wasn't going to make a lot of money in his career.
Mm-hmm.
That's those Notre Dame boys.
Yeah. It's a bad showing this past weekend.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they're done. I had a future on them earlier in the year. That one's in the tank. Yeah. All right, boss. Well, I will catch up with you next week.
All right.
See ya.
Do it.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Rival Sports Pod. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also email us at rivalsportspod@gmail.com with any topics, ideas, or questions.